Good evening, folks. Today is Sunday, September 1st, and I'm actually in a combine. This doesn't happen very often. There's a couple spots down south that Dad was going to rip around with the sprayer, and I guess you can't really see. Yeah, we're harvesting right beside the yard, and so we've got our semi parked over top of the auger. So Zach's just running straight there with the grain cart. We were bagging actually, but now he's running there. And we said, well, we don't really need a trucker, so Dad peeled out to go spraying. I think he'd had enough combining for a little bit. And so he's like, yeah, you may as well run this thing and get used to it. It takes a lot. And it does. But a lot of it's coming back to me. Still playing with settings, but something you might see is we are having some sweet yields. Now this one's showing fairly low. Normally I'd be thrilled about that number, but there's a spot to the south that's a little gravelly. Dad went and did that. There's probably about 10 acres there, and it was only doing about 35 bushels, so that's what brought the average down. But overall, things are doing quite well. Trying to do a one-handed corner here, see how this works. So you will notice we haven't figured out how to turn on the end of header lights. So if somebody knows how to do that, please let me know. Not the smoothest. Oh no. Oh, definitely no. I know there's a spot over here I forgot. That little piece right up there. But let's zoom this back in. Better turn on that. So yeah, there is another light, and this thing has wicked lights going forward. Just, you can kind of see it's quite dark right at the knife head over there. There's another light right there. We haven't figured out how to turn on yet. I've been playing with everything up here, trying to press buttons. And both combines we can't. We're not sure if there's a setting somewhere here, or a switch that we don't know about, or what. But so far that's my only complaint. This thing is doing a fantastic job. Actually, I do have one more complaint, and it's pretty sad it's that there's not enough information. Like this little, we'll call it a widget that shows all of my automation parameters. I like it. Like you can see here, our rotor's going 1130, our fan's 970, concave gap. Concave gap is the only thing that is not adjusted by the automation. There's your vanes, your pre-sieve, your upper and lower sieves. That's showing like, oh, bushels per acre, bushels per hour. Yeah, I would almost rather have moisture instead of bushels per hour. It's got engine load. Other than that, you know, you got our ground speed. I did have moisture here at one point, but I prefer the auto height or the header height, just to know that. And our moisture does show up in climate field view up here. So it's actually a pretty nice little tandem system. Now this guy just displays what's going on. So if I go to data, you're going to see they always track. That is one thing. They track acres a little differently. Moisture average, yeah, 12.3. Moisture 12.3. Yield 69, 69.6. That's instantaneous. Just, yeah, all sorts of stuff there. You can see our map, our coverage map. So you can see where my uncle has been, because it's white. Now we don't have the telematics enabled to where they can talk to each other. I'm not sure if we necessarily need it. We'll see. And our GPS. But this is the best crop of durum, and it sounds like everybody's having really good yields around here. So hopefully prices don't fall. I know price of peas has already dropped. Price of durum is lower than it should be, but we'll see. Like I said, right now it's averaging 83 bushels an acre instantaneous where I am. That pays a lot of bills, even at the current price of durum. So I can't be terribly upset. We are, I would say, around 20 to 25% done. I haven't calculated it. And yeah, things have been really good. Peas were a farm record this year. We're on track to have durum be a farm record. I can almost guarantee Dad's half section of wheat is going to be a farm record. It's a spectacular looking crop. And canola. Well, canola looks good. I've seen canola look good and be average. So we'll have to wait and see on it. But we didn't have a scorcher of a summer. We've had more plus 30 days this last week, which is the last week of August. And essentially, I'm saying from like Tuesday on, it's been 30 degrees or better every day, than we did from, I'd have to guess, and say, like, I don't think we had any plus, might have had 1 or 2 plus 30s in June, 1 or 2 in July, and until this last week, none in August. It's been wild. So the crops weren't very stressed. They were stressed because they didn't get moisture early on, but boy, when they got that moisture, they took off. Now, there are places that fizzled out. I know I'm going to have probably about 40 acres, 30, 40 acres. It's just on some really gravelly land, and unless it gets rains constantly, it's not going to be spectacular. It'll still probably do 25 to 30 bushels, and the rest is actually really good, and it tends to do above average. So that field typically ends up being like slightly below the farm average, but it's, you know, it's solid. But to have no plus 30 days when the canola is flowering, and the canola flowered for weeks and weeks on end, that's exciting. As long as we don't get a storm in the next little bit here. So we have done 100 acres down at my uncle's for durum. So we did, sorry, back up. We did, Dad had 440-ish acres, 445 acres of peas here. Did spectacular. Best peas he's ever had. And then I had some down south that were just as good, except for there's about 15 acres that drowned out pretty hard because it's just really, really low land. And other than, it was still my best field of peas ever, and it was 6-7 bushels less than my dad. So yeah, was talking with my uncle and Dad, they both said that the farm's never averaged 60 for peas. We've had it where, oh yeah, one field did spectacular. It was 60 or 70. And then, yeah, the next field you go to is 25, 30, or it got hailed on, you know, stuff like that. So we almost touched 70. I think the farm average was 68, which is nuts. And I've heard of guys further to the west of us having better numbers, talking 90s. So we got that done. So all in, I think it was like 720 acres. And then we jumped into my first field at Durham, which was not the first one seeded, but we wanted to keep that stuff for seed, so we tore into that. We did about 100 acres, 110 acres or something like that. And the spots that were really low, kind of like what this would be right here, we're kind of in a dip. We're too green, so we were cutting around it. So we were leaving some of the best yield out there. And even at that point, we'd been averaging my best durum, our best durum ever. So we did that, and then we moved I shouldn't say just, we moved a long ways from my uncle's to my father's, essentially. And yeah, it was, I think it's 14 or 15 miles down the back roads to get here. Did the field across the way. It was mid-70s average, which is huge. And this is doing, you know, most of that. Field to the north of us that we got to go to next, I don't think will be as good, but it's been surprising all year. And, you know, hopefully that stays true for the canola. I don't know where Zach is. Hopefully he's not. Oh, I think that's him turning right there. Is it? No. That's too far away. Hopefully he's not having issues. Automation has us slowed down pretty good. Probably a sign that things are getting a little tough. Maybe I'll turn on my other lights. Doesn't look clumpy coming out the back. There's Zach over there. Come on, Sue. Is that Zach or is that Jim? That's got to be Zach. Suppose I can shut off my header. The tank's full, that's why my auger's out. That's a nice feature too. Can't really tell right now, but it switches. So this is Dad's combine. He's got the auger light, so that when you're
still going through, no problem.
The automation slowed us down a little bit, or at least me, but it's going through, making a good job. So when that auger goes out, the camera switches over there, or you can just tap That's the rear view. Dad's doesn't have a one in the grain tank. My combine has one in the grain tank, has a rear view, but doesn't have an auger one. So we'll probably end up putting that feature on both. Having a grain tank one is really nice, so you know exactly how full you are, and you can see this, and you can really see what kind of job you're doing, because once you're above this window, you can't really tell. Here we go. Don't really want to swing too badly with him right there. Grain quality has been stellar right now. Doesn't take much for Durham to lose a grade. What we're seeing right now is definitely number one, and we never get number one. So I know what number one looks like because I've grown number two, and this is much better looking. We'll have to see what the next few days brings, though, because they're talking Tuesday. It might be a misty or rainy day. That's all it takes to drop from a 1 to a 2 or a 3. It takes a fair bit to drop down to a 4 and a 5. But there's a big price drop after 3. So, see what the weather brings. See how our progress goes. Tiny bit of unthreshed, kind of white caps in there, but a lot of those, by the time they go through the auger, get dried up, and then they go through this auger, and then up the grain auger into the bin, and then they get dried in the bin, and then they get run out of the auger. It'll be threshed up. I was out throwing pans, very little losses, so we're very, very happy with what we're seeing with these machines. How's this for timing? Just got this dinky little strip. It starts raining. I gotta get to Zach. Grain's good and dry. It's not supposed to rain much, but you just never know with these little pop-up thunderstorms.